Hi, it's Luke with Gaming Public Radio. It's just me today. We're going to start a PlayStation podcast with the name called Play by Play. Just a way for us to talk specifically about PlayStation news and how things keep rolling out for that ecosystem. So this is the epilogue episode of Play by Play. So today I'm going to talk about a few news items that happened over the last couple weeks. We're going to try and do this show a couple times a month. But again, I'm Luke from Gaming Public Radio. This is our PlayStation podcast called Play by Play. Happy to be with you today. So our first topic for the day is budgets and games. I don't know, probably one of the first, second, or third shows that we did with GPR. I was talking about big game budgets and how expensive they were becoming, and how it just isn't a sustainable business model to make money on video games for companies. So, I don't know, last week, maybe 2 weeks ago now, there was a report on Alan Wake 2 and how it wasn't a successful game. Now, this isn't a PlayStation exclusive topic, but it is relevant to PlayStation. Alan Wake 2 is an awesome game, but it didn't make a profit. Is this a oncoming trend for new games? I would think so. Former PlayStation executive Sean Layden predicted this trend several years ago. In a 2020 Games Industry Biz feature, Layden says he would welcome the 12 to 15 hour AAA game. The established AAA model is just not sustainable. We here at GPR for a few weeks have talked about this in our show on this topic. Gigantic budgets, no physical release, post-COVID employment numbers. This sounds like Alan Wake 2. But this is several AAA games, including Spider-Man 2, which should be a case study in this topic. A huge $300 million budget with the shiniest tools and coolest gimmicks, but doesn't mean it will sell better. Now, in my opinion, Spider-Man from 2018 was a much better game, as far as pacing, as far as missions, as far as boss fights. Spider-Man 2 was still good, but I preferred the 2018 Spider-Man. It didn't set the world on fire, it looked awesome, but again, 2018 was better in my opinion. On the same topic, let's also look at Helldivers 2, a game that recently came out that didn't sell at the $7 price point, but more so the $40 price point. It's only online. Helldivers 2, you're essentially killing gigantic robots or bugs with a team of three people. It's a lot of fun. It was in development for a long time, with an estimated budget of around $50 to $100 million to make. That's just based off the time it took and all the promotional material they've done on the game so far. But it's wildly successful. They just added 700,000 spots to their servers so people can play. It's a really popular game right now with online communities on PC and PlayStation. Now, going back to Spider-Man 2 briefly, there is an update coming on March 7th. It includes a new game plus and new suits and a few new accessibility options, so there is more Spider-Man 2 coming here very soon. Now, I think with the overall success of Helldivers 2 and recent layoffs and increasing budgets for development, hopefully Sony will use their brains and begin to releasing day one PC releases. I understand this possibly keeping their star IPs to themselves for a bit, but with the success of Helldivers 2, this is an obvious no-brainer for PlayStation to put their games on PC when they release on console. So hopefully they will do that and they'll become more aggressive with their IPs going to PC to keep that brand alive that I love so much. Okay, our next topic I want to talk about briefly is layoffs at Sony. PlayStation lays off 8% of its staff around the world, which affects around 900 staff members, and they even closed London studio. Here's a brief statement from Jim Ryan. The PlayStation community means everything to us, so I felt it was important to update you on a difficult day at our company. We have made the extremely hard decision to announce our plan to commence a reduction of our overall headcount globally by around 8% or about 900 people. He goes more specifically in an email he sent out. He says the plan for the UK is proposed. The PlayStation Studios London will close in its entirety. There will be reductions in Firesprite Studio, and there will be reductions in various functions across SIE in the UK. There will also be changes in the U.S. offices as well as Japan and other countries. Also, on the same note, Herman Holst sent out a similar memo to his teams across Europe and America. I just like this one quote that he said. He says, PlayStation 5 is in its 4th year, and we are at a stage where we need to step back and look at what our business needs. At the same time, our industry has experienced continuing and fundamental change, which affects how we all create and play games. Delivering the immersive narrative-driven stories that PlayStation Studios is known for, at the quality bar that we aspire to, requires a reevaluation of how we operate. Then he goes on to announce that they're reducing staff at Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and reiterating that they're closing London studios. So a sad day for all these creatives at PlayStation Studios, with the complete closure of London studios, which I want to talk about for a second. So London Studios, and not Media Molecule. How is this studio still around? Dreams was their last game they released. Development took a long time, and Dreams did not set the world on fire. Though it did bring forth cool tools for talented people to develop their own games at home, and develop a cult following, even asking for a port to be developed for PS5 and PC, but it didn't set the world on fire like they wanted it to. Now, Sony recently announced layoffs and didn't touch Media Molecule. Media Molecule typically develops the more niche titles in the PlayStation library. These past few years, PlayStation has also closed a few of their smaller studios that include Studio Japan, Pixel Opus, probably one or two more I just can't think of, and now London Studio. They're all closed, but Media Molecule remains open. One could argue those studios, the closed studios I mentioned, games were far more successful than anything that Media Molecule has ever released. Now, I love Sackboy Adventures. I enjoyed the Little Big Planet games, but again, those are very niche titles for a specific audience. Not really myself, but there are big followings for those games. London Studios seemed to focus again on niche titles, smaller titles as well, but they also had a focus on VR titles, and even had a fantasy-style live service game in development. So what does Media Molecule have? Maybe they have Little Big Planet 4, maybe something else we don't know about, or maybe their boxes are already packed and they're anticipating their own closure. No one knows for sure. The gaming industry is in a downward spiral, and I hope it can correct the tailspin and come back stronger than ever. And may all the thousands of people who are displaced, may those devs find meaningful work soon. But if it doesn't, I'm afraid the industry that we love here at GPR and our fellow podcast and friends in the industries will find itself a shadow of itself. With the closure of London Studios and recent announcements of the PSVR 2 headed to PC, does this leave the PSVR 2 out to dry? Like so many other PlayStation ideas that didn't pan out for them, I hope the PSVR 2 isn't on its last legs, but the coffin might already be being wheeled out. But maybe the PC implementation of PSVR 2 will revitalize that unit. Again, global studios infected by Ryan's Order was Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Firesprite, and Guerrilla. Now, what surprises me about them affecting Insomniac is the fact that that's kind of been the big studio of the PS5 generation. If you look at it, they did the Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remaster, Spider-Man 2, and Ratchet and Clank. Those have all been really big hits for PlayStation this console generation. So it's kind of sad that they were affected by this layoff. As well as Naughty Dog. They just released the Last of Us 2 remaster a couple months ago in January. So it hasn't been that long. So I'm not sure why we're having these big layoffs for PlayStation when they're successful studios. The studios releasing games are the ones being affected by these layoffs. Also, from Bloomberg, Jason Schreier mentioned that they canceled a Twisted Metal game that hasn't been announced yet, but it was canceled due to the financial situation. Now, the good news is in all this layoff mess, at least at PlayStation, is that Jim Ryan will soon be out of his position at the end of March, I believe. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel on Jim Ryan's successful but rough reign as the PlayStation head. So hopefully we'll get a good leader in there soon who can implement some changes back to the old PlayStation days of Sean Layden and those guys there at the PS4 era. Jack Tritton, Adam Boyes, Gio Corsi, some of those more fun guys than Jim Ryan is. I'm not saying he's not smart or he's not business savvy, but he just doesn't seem like he cares for the gaming public as those other people did. Now, table topic 3 is Neil Druckmann. He was in a recent podcast with the rapper Logic and said that he might not have many games left in him. He said this. He says he sees himself transitioning into a smaller key to have less stress and spend more time with his kids. No timeline was mentioned, so we'll follow the story as it progresses. But with the leaks of The Last of Us Part 2 and the big games he's worked on, such as Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and 4, I'm sure this guy has a lot of stress. And he also said that the game they're currently working on is going to be the most hard one yet. So I can't wait to see what they put out with their next game. It is going to be a new IP, and he also did mention something along the lines of he has an idea for Last of Us Part 3. So we'll see how that story develops with Neil Druckmann and his transition to smaller key roles, and maybe eventually retirement for Neil. But let's hope that he stays around for a little bit longer. I know some people don't care for him or his writing, but I think he's great. So let's hope that Neil can stay around for a little bit longer and continue to put out good games at Naughty Dog. So PlayStation Plus, that's always a fun thing to talk about. The monthly games that are coming out this month for the PlayStation Plus games they offer every month is Sifu. That's a fun kung fu game. It's pretty hard, but it's fun to play. It has some neat mechanics where you age as your character dies during combat. Your character ages until your character passes away. So it's a neat mechanic where you can unlock a lot of upgrades, and it's a lot of fun. The next game on this month is Hello Neighbor 2. Now my kids love that style of game. That's not much for me. Destiny 2 Witch Queen. I know that Ricky is a big Destiny 2 fan, so maybe this will appeal to Ricky and to his audience. And lastly, the last month is EA Sports F1 23. If you're a racing car fan, this game will be for you, especially Formula 1 cars. So is it a good month? Is it a bad month? Well, as someone that already has Sifu, and someone who does enjoy racing games, I'd say it's a mediocre month for PlayStation Plus. Now, on the PlayStation Plus premium side, they did put Resistance Retribution, a great Resistance PSP game from a while back. Longtime PlayStation fans have been asking for a new Resistance game. So here's a little bit more Resistance if you're a longtime fan of that series. I, for one, would love to see another Resistance. I would love to see another Killzone world. I would love to explore Chimera and Helghaz and just take those bad guys out. So hopefully, eventually, we'll get something along those lines in the near future for Killzone or Resistance. Speaking of old IPs making a comeback, just yesterday I saw that they're remastering Gravity Rush 2 for PS5. Now those were some neat games from Japan Studio. If you haven't tried a Gravity Rush game, I highly recommend them. They're just fun action platformers with neat mechanics where you float around the world as your character can control gravity. So we've talked about PlayStation Plus. A big announcement probably 2 weeks ago or so was that there are some Xbox games coming to PlayStation, as we see Xbox transition into a more third-party role than a first-party role, which is okay. But the games that are coming from them are more of the B-tier games, in my opinion. Not bad, just not the best of the best that they have to offer. Those games are Penitent, kind of a 16th century story-driven narrative where your character is a bard and you go through Europe and figure out a mission. I played it, but I can't explain it very well. So we have Penitent, also Hi-Fi Rush. That's a fun game from Tango Works. Everything is a music-driven world. There's also Sea of Thieves. Those are the main ones coming to PS5. And then Grounded is going to Switch. Sea of Thieves, kind of a special note about them. This will be the first game from Rare on PlayStation in their 39-year history. So that's pretty exciting for Rare and pretty exciting for PlayStation, because maybe they'll build a new partnership with those two companies. Now on to some meaty news. Bloodborne, one of my favorite games of all time. That is one of the first games I platinumed, a hard game to platinum, and I was able to do it. But we might be getting Bloodborne on PS6 when that happens. Maybe not PS5, but maybe PS6. So a Bloodborne remake or remaster or even just a re-release has been a top topic of many FromSoft fans' wish lists for years now. But as time passes and other titles receive such treatment over the PS4 Classic, hope might be starting to fade. Sony owns the IP, so From Software has no real control over what happens with it. But as part of a rare interview opportunity with Hidetaka Miyazaki, Eurogamer posed the question of Bloodborne remake to the game's own creator. And Miyazaki says, "It's a title we hold very dear, and just as our fans, it does make me happy to see that there will still be so many people passionate about it," he said. Miyazaki believes that new hardware is definitely a part of what gives these remakes value, and that things like being able to render specific expressions sometimes makes it possible. When it wasn't before an older console, the outlet alludes to how the remake of Demon's Souls waited 2 generations before the new version released on PS5 as a PS5 launch title. So the case could be for the same for Bloodborne. However, I wouldn't say that that's the be-all end-all, he adds. I think purely from a user perspective, modern hardware also allows more players to appreciate all the games, and so it ends up being a simple reason, but as a fellow player, I like to think that accessibility is important. I think that it can be a driving force between bringing an old game to a new platform. No matter whether it remains forever on PS4 as an exclusive, or re-released in the future, Miyazaki looks back fondly on Bloodborne and is pleased that it still has a fan base. Put simply, it makes me very happy to see a title with a lot of specific memories, both for me and the staff who worked on it. So, Eurogamer ends with this. Do you think a Bloodborne remake will ever happen, or have we given up hope? So I pose a question to our GPR audience. If you're a fan of Bloodborne, do you hope or do you think we'll ever get a remaster or remake or just even re-release of Bloodborne? I, for one, hope we do, again, as it's the first game I platinumed on PS4. So I hope it is one game we do see again in the future. Whether it be a sequel, remaster, remake, whatever the case may be, I'm always for more Bloodborne. Just a couple more news items, and then our first episode, the epilogue episode, will conclude. So according to a leaked video, Helldivers 2, going back to Helldivers, will be adding mech suits and vehicles, as well as a few new weapons. Again, this game is so fun. If you haven't tried it, for the budget price of $39, $40, I say try it, either on PS5 if you have one, or on PC. It's a lot of fun. I can't recommend this game enough. I said this earlier, but PSVR 2 is coming to PC. Just a way to hopefully revitalize that system, to bring more accessibility to it, and to bring more games to it. Hopefully the PSVR 2 is still alive. Upcoming releases of interest. Upcoming on PS5 that are upcoming is MLB The Show 24. That comes out here on March 19th. We also have Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade in April. So a few second-party games coming out here pretty shortly. I'll give updates on those, impression updates on those once they release, and I can talk about them more once we know more about them. But speaking of games that we're giving impressions on, both Jacob and I are working our way through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I started again last night and got through the first area that they have in the demo, so Nibelheim, and Jacob I know is a few hours into it. But as soon as we both make some meaty progress, we'll have an impression video just talking about our experience so far and what we're thinking. But the demo, I love the demo, and what I've played so far again, kind of going over the demo again, is a lot of fun. It's visually breathtaking, so we'll have our full impressions together, either on our main show, Game Public Radio, or as a separate video here within the next few weeks. A few other news items before we end today. A report from Gamatsu indicated a change in the publisher of Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler is a game I know that all three of us, Jacob, Ricky, and myself, all enjoyed, and maybe more so Octopath Traveler 2. But Octopath Traveler was delisted from the eShop of Nintendo, and then if you go to look at the page of that, it shows Nintendo as a publisher, but it was updated to Square Enix. This could indicate a PlayStation release, as Octopath Traveler 2 is available on all platforms, and Octopath Traveler is already available on Nintendo Switch and Xbox systems. And I would love to have Octopath Traveler, the first one, on PS5 to join my physical library of games. Okay, well, that's all the news I have for this first episode of Play by Play. Again, this will just be probably twice a month, just news update on PlayStation news happening around that ecosystem. Things we find interesting and cool on the PlayStation side of things. And this is Luke from Gaming Public Radio. Our first episode, the epilogue episode of Play by Play. I hope you listened to it. I hope you liked it, and just leave us some feedback for it. All right. For all your opportunities in gaming excellence, check us out at GPR on YouTube, on Twitter, all those social media places. And peace and have a good day. This is Luke signing off.